Often it is the case that we want to summarize up to some sort of group level information in the data. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through some of the tools that we have available to us. We're going to use the same data set we used last week. This is the Baked Churners data set. This is data from credit card usage. We're using the same packages we've used before. And we've used group by before to limit lag variables in how they process the data. So now the only difference we're going to use is do something else with that group by. So here we've got these card categories. So this is different sort of levels of the card. And instead of the mutate function, we use the summarize function. And the summarize function, what it does is use summary, I guess they're just called summary functions, like sum and mean, minimum, maximum, or these quantile things we've used before. There are some other ones as well, but these are the most common. So let's say by card category, we want to calculate the average of how much they're using their credit cards. In this column, average utilization ratio. So we create a new column just like we did in mutate. Here we're going to create a new column. I'm putting it this way to be mean utilization. So, and we create the new column, name it, set it equal to something we do to it, and here I'm taking the mean. So we could use any of these other functions here as well. What summarize does is aggregate the data to whatever level we have in this group by function. So if we don't group the data, it'll aggregate it all to the entire data set. Otherwise, it'll group it by whatever category we use here. So we run this. We look at the output. I named it out. And notice it did it by category. So now we only have one observation per category. And it shows us that in the blue card, the mean percent of their credit limit that they're using is 29%. The gold and the silver are much smaller, but pretty similar to each other, and then the platinum is a smaller mean as well. So of their credit limit, the blues are using the most, gold and silver is the next, and platinum the least. We can do the same thing with the SQL statements. So select, we have to include any variable that we group by. So back down here it says group by, I'm going to use gender. So group by, select that group by variable. The mean function in SQL is AVG for average. Sum works the same way. Min and max work, they look the same as in dplyr. And then again, we have to create this column and then name it. So we name it saying as whatever the name is from whatever data set, group by the thing we're trying to group by. We run this, and I'm using the average again. So if I go over here, I grouped by gender, which only has two variables here, or two values. And in this data set, it says that females have a credit limit of $5,000, males have a credit limit of $12,600. Don't know what is going on in our data set, but there's a large difference here. All right, the next one, we can also do this by multiple levels, so I just used a single group by column here and here. So let's say we want to group by the education level and the income category level. I'm going to again use the mean, and let's say I want to filter out a couple of things. So if I'm doing education level and income category level, there is a category in there that is unknown for both of those. So let's say I just want to get rid of the ones where I don't know what the income or education levels are. Run this, look at this data frame, and notice for each education level and for each income category, I have the mean that they are using of that credit card. So we could graph this, so I want to show you a few new graphing options to make it fun to do. So here I'm going to use the data frame I just created that has the mean average utilization ratio by education level and income category level. Most of this you've seen before. AES is what gets input into the graphing function, and X I'm going to use the education level, Y I'm going to use the mean utilization that we calculated for each level, and I want to group by the income category level, so the fill I'm going to set to be determined by whatever their income category level is. You could just put education level here and income category level here. The new thing that I'm adding is if you want to sort them in a particular order. So you can turn education level into a factor. So factor, what it does is just keep in the data frames like a numbered category. And so to create that factor, we use the column that we are talking about, and then you could just stop there and it'll put it in whatever order it finds it in the data set. Here I'm trying to tell it which order to go in, so I'm going from the category of uneducated, then high school, college, graduate, postgraduate. Now graduate, I don't know if that's high school or college graduate, I just put it in here. Maybe it's college graduate, no idea, but it looks good next to postgraduate. And then doctorate. And then other than that, everything else is the same except for this geom column. So this creates a column graph. So a column graph uses some y variable that it's going to summarize by here, mean utility. You could also do geom bar, and that just counts how many are there. So it's sort of like a histogram. So lots of different graphs like we already saw. So run this. And notice it's just a fun sort of graph. We did a few different things. I labeled the y-axis, the x-axis. I labeled this the filling categories, and notice they're all in the order I specified, which kind of makes it sort of nice here and here. And a few things we get from at least the data we have. So the smallest ones are coming from the doctorate level, at least here, right? So this is small, this is small, this is small. So the height of the bar says how much the magnitude. So at the doctorate level, sorry, I said doctorate level, but the highest income level has the least amount of using the credit card, except for postgraduate. So I guess you go graduate and then go to postgraduate education, and you have to use your credit card a lot. That's what it looks like if you're going to have a high income level. Those that make a little less, right? So 80,000, 60 to 80,000, they sort of have about the same level across all education levels. Those that are making the least amount of money use the credit card the most. So a couple of interesting sort of things, and the education level overall doesn't seem to matter that much. So a little bit of fun there. Then we might also then want to use a function within a group rather than just do these summary functions. So here I'm going to do the correlation, and just something that I thought might be interesting is how much the credit limit varies, or how much the utilization of the credit varies with the credit limit. So if you have a higher credit limit, do you use more or less of the amount of your credit available? And I'm going to call this correlation. So, or core_CLAU. And then, so what I can do is the same thing as we did up here in the summarize. In this summarize function, create a new table, and that is with a function, and here a function of 2 columns. So we can do the same thing. It turns out there aren't too many in the data frame that are after retirement age. So let's say I'm going to remove those that are less than 65. So we can look over here and see that. So it can't even calculate it for 70 and 73, so I'm just going to stop here. So remove those, and then let's do the same sort of plot we've used before. So this is sort of interesting. So depending on your age, so the younger use a large amount of the credit they have available on their credit card. As you get older into mid-career, using less, a smaller percent of the credit card, and then it starts to go back up nearing retirement. So older use a larger percent of their credit card. So kind of interesting that this sort of changes by age in the data frame. All right, so the main thing that I hope you take away from this is the ability to do these summary functions, and as we get to other modeling, we can use this same sort of idea to group by certain groups and summarize. So there are lots of ways that you might come up with that in your work. So you might want to sum the inventory maybe by product, or the largest sales by day, or accounts receivable by customer, or performance by industry. Lots of things that you might be interested in doing this for. And the more flexible your tools are, the better you can easily do this stuff.